Welcome to a special edition of NHK Newsline. I'm Yamamoto Miki. Today, March 11th, marks 14 years since the Great East Japan earthquake. At the exact time the quake struck, people across the country took time to remember the victims. As we get started, please note that this program will contain footage you may find disturbing. On this day in 2011, the magnitude 9 quake triggered a massive tsunami, devastating wide areas across eastern Japan's Pacific coast. Over 22,000 people died or went missing. That figure includes deaths due to health problems or other complications related to the disaster. It also caused one of the world's worst nuclear accidents. The Tokyo Electric Power Company's Fukushima Daiichi power plant suffered meltdowns caused by the earthquake and tsunami. Now, people across the country held a moment of silence at 2:46 p.m. when the quake occurred. Since early morning, people in areas that were hit hard have been gathering to pay respects to those lost.
I sincerely hope those who died are resting in peace.
One man paid tribute with his passion for music. He was a high school student during the disaster and paid his trumpet to people in evacuation centers.
Today, it's like I'm meeting with myself as I was 14 years ago. At the same time, on this day, I'm meeting with those who passed away. It's also a time to think about hope for the future.
This year's commemorations come at a tough moment for people in the city of Ofunato in Iwate Prefecture. The area, which was devastated by the tsunami 14 years ago, was recently struck by massive wildfires. The flames were only contained a few days ago. Now residents are reflecting on two tragedies.
I hope neither a major quake, tsunami, nor a wildfire ever happens again.
Now, while many areas of Japan felt the quake, the Tohoku region was worst hit by the tsunami. Let's go now to Ishinomaki City in Miyagi, where my colleague Takao Minori is standing by for us. So Minori, how are people there marking the day?
At 2:46 p.m., we heard a siren resonate throughout the city. And at the nearby Memorial Park, we saw many people gather on a hill. They were bowing their heads in prayer to observe that moment of silence. After 14 years, the grief still runs deep. Ishinomaki is where one of the greatest losses of life occurred from the disaster. Nearly 3,500 people died here, including those who died from disaster-related causes, and over 400 people are still missing, according to the city. This building stands proof of the destruction of that day, March 11, 2011. They're the ruins of Katonowaki Elementary School. If you can take a look at this line, it shows how high the tsunami came on that day. And through this window, you can see the amount of destruction this school suffered. One child's backpack is still lying in the wreckage. Many buildings nearby were torn down as part of the recovery effort. But residents decided to leave this one as is. They say they want to remind people who come here why it's important to be prepared for disasters. Cars, houses, and debris were swept in by the tsunami. Some of it was on fire when it crashed into the school, igniting the eastern wing. The blaze quickly spread through the upper floors, but by then the students here had already evacuated. They followed protocol and escaped up a hill in the back. It was a route that they had practiced using time and time again. So these ruins are a reminder of how important these evacuation drills are and that they can save lives. Later on in the program, we will go inside and have a closer look.
A very powerful reminder of that day. Thank you, Minari. Next, we turn to Fukushima. The Tokyo Electric Power Company's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant was devastated by the earthquake and tsunami. 14 years on, progress has been made toward its decommissioning, but that careful work is happening at a glacial pace. Locals are being told it could take decades before it's all done. Let's look back now at where things started and where they stand now.
On March 11, 2011, a wall of water collided with one of Japan's largest nuclear plants. During the triple meltdown that followed, radioactive material was expelled, spreading on land and offshore. Areas were cordoned off, and over 160,000 people had to flee. More than 20,000 remained displaced. As time goes on, wider areas are being decontaminated. Evacuation orders are being lifted. New public housing is being built, and people are gradually moving back. Essential services like the post office and police are returning, along with other amenities that disappeared in the wake of the disaster. When a 24-hour beef bowl restaurant opened this January in an area once under evacuation orders, for some it was a symbol of hope.
I'm just happy to have a place like this light up the neighborhood. I hope more shops open and the area becomes lively again.
Inside the plant, signs of progress are a bit less visible. That includes removing radioactive debris in the plant. Last year, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, announced its first successful test retrieval of debris, but the amount was minuscule compared to the total material inside the plant, an estimated 880 tons. For locals waiting to go back, it all seems daunting.
It's a tiny amount, but there are 880 tons. It's going to take a long time. If there were no debris, more people would move back.
There's also the issue of soil. 14 million cubic meters of it, exposed to fallout during the disaster, now kept in interim storage in Fukushima Prefecture. It's unclear where it will go. The government plans to reuse some of it in public works as long as the concentration of radioactive substances falls below a certain threshold. But the details have not yet been worked out. For years, water used to cool molten fuel mixed with rain and groundwater has accumulated at the plant, but since 2023, its release has been moving forward. The water has been treated to remove most radioactive substances, except tritium. It's then diluted, reducing levels of tritium to well below the World Health Organization's guidelines for drinking water and released into the ocean. The process is being monitored by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which has found no issues and says it will be there every step of the way.
The involvement of the IAEA, independently of the participation of third parties or any country, would take place until the last drop of this water, and it would be carried out before, during and after the process. So this means that we are in this together for the long haul.
As the water release continues, workers are now clearing away the empty tanks housed at the facility. The space they occupy could be essential for the work ahead. Our Ueno Yamato was part of an NHK team that received an exclusive look inside the plant.
From here, they seem to stretch on endlessly, holding over 1 million tons of treated water, according to TEPCO. Now, it's time for some of these metal behemoths to go.
These are some of the massive tanks TEPCO is dismantling. It plans to remove 21 of them as a first step toward the next part of the decommissioning process.
TEPCO needs the space. That's because it needs to begin constructing special facilities to store massive amounts of nuclear fuel debris once it can be removed in large quantities. This could be the location for them. Less than a gram of the material was retrieved last year, but the operator says that tiny amount was a big step. Takahara Kenichi, a senior TEPCO official, says November's success paves the way for a stable, repeatable process to get the rest of the debris out.
The purpose of this project was to collect samples. We need to have the necessary data before we can consider large-scale retrieval in the future.
And there's still more data to collect before it happens. A second test retriever is scheduled for this spring. But the clock is ticking. TEPCO and Japan's government have set 2051 as their deadline to fully decommission the plant. But the retrieval work has been already delayed 3 years. The timeline is believed to be based on how long it took to clean up the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant accident that happened in the US back in 1979. 11 years to remove all debris from one reactor. But extrapolating the situation to Fukushima Daiichi, where 3 reactors were damaged, leaving about 880 tons of fuel debris, could be a stretch. Whether TEPCO can achieve this could have sweeping impacts on how the nuclear industry is perceived, not just in Japan, but around the world.
Right now, tools like artificial intelligence seem poised to bring nuclear energy to new heights. But the slow, grinding cleanup here at Fukushima Daiichi is a reminder. Without warning, one bad day can stretch on for decades. Ueno Yamato, NHK World, Fukushima.
Now, south of Fukushima Daiichi lies the town of Tomioka, where evacuation orders have now mostly been lifted. But residents are coming back to find that the area's flowers have been cut down for decontamination. Our Ueno Yamato returns with the story of a man who went to Tomioka to revive its symbolic blossoms and make spring shine bright there once more.
Watanabe Yuto's life revolves around azaleas. The 24-year-old is the successor to a garden in the city of Tsukagawa that lasted 300 years. In 2011, people living near the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant on the coast were forced to move. Some came to the city. The azaleas there became a source of joy.
I remember what it looked like in my childhood, and I think even a few flowers can help people heal. I want flowers to impact people in a positive way.
Watanabe learned that the flowers that bloomed at the local Yonomori station were cut down when decontamination work got underway. Over 6,000 azaleas used to bloom each year. Residents told him that the flowers made them proud, and they want to restore the area to its former glory. Watanabe and his father have started replanting flowers alongside over 30 volunteers. They aim to plant 100 near the station in March.
I want to work with the locals and increase the number of flowers here little by little, and eventually bring it back to life. This way we can create a place that will be loved for a long time.
Now, Watanabe is putting his love of flowers into another project. He is making cocktails using yeast from his azaleas and cherry blossoms in Tomioka town. After 2 years of trial and error, he's finally commercialized. He's brought them to customers across Tokyo and the Kanto region.
The taste is good, but the aroma is amazing. It reminds me of Fukushima and allows me to feel like I'm there.
Watanabe wants people across Japan and beyond to remember Fukushima and all that it has to offer.
I hope people will become curious about Fukushima through the drinks, and it will inspire them to visit and get involved with our work.
He hopes it will revitalize a once blossoming community. Ueno Yamato, NHK World.
Next, we turn to another challenge facing the region, keeping the memories of 3/11 alive. Many young people were not alive to experience it firsthand. Our Takao Minori is in Ishinomaki at a facility designed to pass those lessons on. Minori?
This is how Kadonowaki Elementary School looked soon after the disaster. The tsunami and fire had destroyed many things inside this building, turning them into relics from a happier time. Some of those items are actually displayed here inside a room that used to serve as a classroom. For example, take a look at this shoe cupboard. Japanese school students use these to keep their indoor shoes. So they start their day here and end their day here. But on March 11th, 2011, their daily routine was abruptly ended. Also, this blackboard was on the first floor of the building, and you can see from the discoloration how high the waves came that day, even higher than my height. Why then is it so important that these items are preserved? Joining me now is the director here of the Kadonowaki Elementary School ruins, Richard Halberstadt. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for coming today.
So tell us, why is it so important to preserve these items?
Yeah, some people misunderstand. We don't look for sympathy from people. That's not the reason we do this. We are doing it because we feel that Japan is a very disaster-prone country. There are bound to be disasters in the future. So we think by keeping the memories alive, we can contribute to reducing the loss of life in future disasters.
Richard, I must say I was surprised to find a British director here, but I believe you have been in Ishinomaki for decades now.
That's right, yes. I've lived here for over 30 years now. I originally came as a university lecturer, but after the disaster, which of course I experienced, then I kind of switched careers, and now what I do is talk about the disaster to people both in English and in Japanese.
And you do remember how things were on March 11th and afterwards?
Of course, yes, because I went through it myself. I was one of the lucky ones to survive. But of course, like everyone in Ishinomaki, there's no one in this town who hasn't lost either a relative or a friend, and I'm one of those as well.
So it's even more important that we get to hear these stories from you. But how do you want people to experience this facility?
Well, we have a number of different exhibits and some quite unique ones, actually. One of which is just here, which I'd like to show to you.
Yes, please.
If you'd like to maybe take a seat at this desk and chair.
Wow, it's rather small.
It's small because it's designed for second graders, yeah.
Second grade.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and I'm looking at.
Well, so sitting at this desk, we hope it gives you a chance to like relive your days back at school and feel empathy with the kids who are actually in the school at the time. And in addition to that, right in front of you, we have a tsunami and fire damaged desk and chair here. So that gives you a contrast between how regular school life was and also the shock of what the disaster must have been like for the children.
You certainly do feel this connection between, you know, sitting at this desk and seeing an actual relic.
Yeah, it really makes that emotional connection, doesn't it?
It does. And, you know, I guess that's why it's important to really experience these things for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the reasons we really worked hard trying to make some of the exhibits here. They have a Japanese word called jibungoto, which means, yeah, and that means feeling a connection with something, feeling like you have a stake in it. And it's kind of contrasted with hitogoto, which is more kind of objective and being removed and just an observer from the outside. And we feel like that if you get this jibungoto connection, then it's more impactful and it makes you think more about it and maybe think about how to protect yourself against disasters in the future.
We certainly want many people from around the world to make this jibungoto by coming here.
We'd love to see anyone, and I can speak in English as well, so.
That's right. Well, thank you very much, Director Richard Halberstadt of the Kadonowaki Elementary School ruins. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Definitely thanks to people like Richard, the important message can live on. Thank you, Minori. Our Takao Minori reporting for us from Ishinomaki. And that was NHK World's special coverage of the Great East Japan earthquake 14 years on.